Hi everyone, welcome to our channel, Rebecca, Stu, and the crew. I'm Rebecca. Today we're going to be making this Dollar Tree DIY for spring. So let's go over our supplies first. Most of the items can be found at the Dollar Tree. We'll use one bunch of this greenery, one bag of the green moss, one bag of the carrots, 4 brads, optional. We'll need some twine, buttons, which are also optional. We'll need the large wood craft sticks, one white chalk writer, and either a Jot brand paint marker or a black Sharpie marker. We'll also use the Ready board, which is over by the cardstock, and we'll need some different colors of paint. I'm going to use white, black, off-white, light pink. I'll use orange and moss green. We're also going to use a little bit of Mod Podge and a paintbrush, a few toothpicks for the greenery for the carrots. We'll need a sanding block, or you could use an emery board, a straight edge, scissors, paintbrushes, pencils, some hot glue, and we'll also need a straight edge. Now, Dollar Tree does carry cardstock now, but I'm going to use this cardstock from Hobby Lobby. I'm using the blue and white gingham and the gray palette. I'm also going to be using this drawing that I created. There's a link in the description box below for a printable version. And so let's get crafty. The very first thing we're going to do is take our Ready foam board and we're going to draw 3 pieces. They're 19 by 6 inches. I use this sign as my template from Dollar Tree. Then we're just going to use our straight edge and a razor blade and cut those 3 pieces apart. Then we're going to take this sign here. We're going to cut 3 pieces, which are 6 by 8.5 inches. I'm using this sign as my template, and you'll need 3 pieces as well. Now I'm only going to draw 2 because I'm going to use the sign. I just had it left over, and that will be my 3rd piece because it was the same thickness as the foam board. Now we're going to take an emery board or your sanding block and sand the edges down where we use the razor blade to cut them, so we have a nice smooth edge on our foam board. And you'll do the larger pieces as well all the way around. And then we're going to glue those together using hot glue. So this will be the top portion of our sign. We'll glue together the 3 pieces of foam board, or if you're using one of the Dollar Tree signs, 2 pieces of foam board, and then the sign itself. I like using this sign just because I had it left over from another craft that I did, and it already has the hanger attached to the back that I can use to hang this up with later. If you don't use a Dollar Tree sign, you're just using the foam board, go ahead and add a hanger to the back. Now we're going to use our hot glue and attach the 3 longer pieces that we cut earlier together so we have the same thickness as the sign at the top. The reason we want it to be 3 pieces of foam board thick is because we want the depth to be able to glue the carrots to the top so that it's the same thickness as those little carrots from the Dollar Tree. Now we're going to attach the smaller sign to the larger sign using the large craft sticks from Dollar Tree. We'll use 6 of those and some hot glue and just glue those together. Because we're using foam board, it's really light, so this is a pretty almost even overkill using 6 craft sticks here to glue it together, but it will definitely stay together long term. And we'll flip it over, and this is the front of our sign now, and we can start to decorate that. So the first thing we're going to do is decorate the bottom. We're going to take a straight edge and measure 1.5 inches down on both sides and draw a line straight across. That will be our garden where we put the moss for our carrots. The bottom portion, we're going to use some Mod Podge and attach this gray palette scrapbooking paper from Hobby Lobby. Just cover the bottom with the Mod Podge and then stick the craft paper on top. And that will measure, it's 4.5 inches tall and then 18.75 inches across. And then we're going to frame it using some large craft sticks from the Dollar Tree. So this is how I did mine. I cut 4 pieces that were 5.25 inches with a 45-degree angle cut on the end, 2 pieces that are 4.25 inches with 45-degree angles cut, and then 4 pieces that are 4.25 inches with just the edges cut down. To do that, we're just going to draw with a pencil on the edges of our craft sticks and cut off those rounded pieces to make straight sticks. if you don't want to do the 45-degree angled frame look, you can do this version right here. Just make straight sticks and then do a frame all the way around that gray palette look. And it will just be like a plain square frame without those special corners. And when you cut your craft stick, you want to be careful. You don't want to cut too fast because it will split the wood. But it's really easy to cut through there. Just slow down a little bit so you don't split it. Now, since I'm going to use mine with the angle, I cut one and then I use that as the template for the others. So for the one where I did 4 pieces with the 45-degree angle cut, the first one I cut became my template for the other 3. And that way you make sure that they're all the same length. And once we have that cut down to size, what we're going to do is paint these with some chalk paint. Now, if you don't want to even use the wood sticks as a frame, if you like, you can use nautical rope, ribbon. Really, there's lots of different options you can use to frame your piece of scrapbook paper that you're making your carrot sign at the bottom with. So while those sticks are drying, we're going to take some black chalk paint and paint the edges of our sign all the way around, top and bottom, and then we'll flip this over and paint the back black as well. And that's just to have a finished look on our finished project. Now that everything's dry, we're going to just attach the framing using some hot glue. And I'm going to go ahead and go all the way around the sign. And then I just cut the post off of the brads and glued 4 of them, one to each corner, to make it look like a nail in the corner of the sign that was holding it together. You can skip that part if you like. You don't have to do that. And now we're going to cut our scrapbooking paper down for the top. I'm going to use the blue and white gingham. You can use Mod Podge to attach this. I'm just going to go ahead and use some hot glue because I didn't need to seal it since this will be in the house. There's our brads in the corners where I had glued those down earlier. And now we'll take our picture and we're going to trace over it so it's nice and dark so I can see it from the back, because I want my bunny to look like this when I paint it. So I'm going to go ahead and draw him on the back of the paper. So when I flip it over like I am right here, I can rub and get the pencil marks on my sign so that I have a template to trace. And you just want to go over your drawing so you get the pencil marks on your paper. And then I went over it with a Sharpie that matched the background paper. I think the bunny looks really cute with the blue and white gingham. That would be really cute to leave him that way and paint the background of the bunny a solid color. So that's another option. So as I paint the bunny, I just paint him white and then I go over the lines of his arms and things with a pencil so that they don't get lost behind the paint, and I'll be able to use those later. So once the white is all painted in, I paint the feet with some pink, and then I also do his nose, his mouth, and the inside of his ears with the light pink paint. Then I went in and took a vanilla colored paint, just a little bit, it has like a little bit of a yellow color to it, and drew some little fur marks on the bunny. Since he has those big floppy ears, he would be one of those bunnies that had a lot of fur. And then I took some linen colored paint mixed in with some white and did his cheeks. I wanted his muzzle to stick out a little bit so he had more of a 3D appearance. And I just kept adding the color until I had the desired look that I wanted for mine. And then we'll go ahead and let that dry for now. He's almost done. Now the bottom part here where he's sitting in the garden, we're going to paint this with moss green paint. The reason we're going to paint this green is because when we actually glue the moss to the sign so he looks like he's sitting in the garden, we didn't want the white of that foam board to be shining through because it's kind of hard to get the moss to completely cover an area. And so that way, if it doesn't completely cover, we won't see stark white behind it. So while the grass is drying, we're just going to go ahead and take a Sharpie marker and do the outline of the rabbit. Now, if you're going to put this outside or anywhere where it might get wet, go ahead and use a Jot brand paint marker from Dollar Tree, or you could just paint this in with a fine paintbrush and some black paint. Mine's going to be inside. If you use a Jot brand marker, then you'll want to go ahead and seal over it with Mod Podge when you're completely finished. I'm afraid the Sharpie would smudge, so I wouldn't necessarily do it if you're just using a marker. But if you use the paint marker, go ahead and use the Mod Podge to seal it. So now that the bunny's done, we're going to go ahead and attach the moss. We're going to work in really small sections and just use some hot glue and then glue your moss down, knocking off the excess once the glue has dried, and just work in small sections all the way across. And just a tip to seal your moss so it doesn't shed a lot, you can use extra strength hairspray to seal it, and it will help keep it from shedding. Now we're going to attach the carrots. We're going to pull that greenery that comes with it off and just trim that down. And then we're going to cut the carrots to a bunch of different lengths so that they look like they're at various lengths of growth. And then the string starts to pop loose a little bit there when you cut the carrots. You want to take some hot glue and just add a little bit of it at the bottom to attach that string back down so it doesn't completely unravel. And just put a little bit of hot glue at the bottom of your carrot and stick it right on top of that little shelf that we created with the foam board that we layered earlier. And that's the perfect width for the carrots. Now we're going to take our toothpicks and some greenery, pull those off the vine, and then just put a little bit of hot glue and pop that right onto your toothpick, and then add a little bit more hot glue and pop that right into the center of the carrots where we remove the greenery. This just gives it a little bit more of a realistic look. And we'll do that to all of the carrots. And then we'll also cut some of the greenery down and stick it between the carrots and in the front of the garden. So it looks like we have some carrots that hadn't yet popped through the soil, and it helps add to that illusion of the different lengths of the carrots growing at different stages, with our bunny sitting right in the center of his garden. And now we'll start doing the bottom of the sign. So I really wanted this to have a hand-drawn look to it, so it had a farmhouse feel. I'm using a Dollar Tree chalk marker. They're a really waxy marker, almost like a crayon. And so I'm really not worried about it wiping off or anything. Like I said, mine's going to be in the house. If you are worried about that, you can use a paint marker or freehand paint this with a different color. And if you don't want to freehand it, you can print out some font on the computer of different sizes and use that as a template. But I'm just going to freehand mine on the sign here. And I just wrote carrots 5 cents each with the chalk marker. And then I wanted to add a little bit of detail with some orange paint. So I am going to take some orange paint and just a Dollar Tree dowel rod to create little dots on our letters. So right where all of the pieces of the letters join in, or at the ends of the letters, we're just going to put a little dot. It was a little bit too orange for me, so while it was wet, I blended in a little bit of white paint to lighten it up, and that's what it looks like here. And then I wanted to put a few carrots on the sign, so I took my dowel rod and just did 4 ovals, larger, smaller, a little bit smaller as you go down, to create this little look of like a carrot that was freehand painted on either side. Put a little bit of greenery at the top of the carrot, and that helps add a little bit of detail to the sign. Then I added some twine bows and buttons to the top where the hanger is at. And this is our whole entire sign completed. I love this so much. I hope you guys enjoyed learning how to make this with me. Don't forget, the link to the drawing is in the description box below. Thanks so much for watching. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and share. If you enjoyed this video, I post DIY videos every Thursday, and every Friday I do a Dollar Tree video to show what is new and popular restocked items for the week at the Dollar Tree. So make sure you check back tomorrow for that video. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.